Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the past, present, and future traditional custodians and elders of this nation, and the continuation of cultural, spiritual, and educational practices of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Thank you very much for joining me here today for my presentation, A Game-Changing Marketing Framework That You Must Have. My name is kiN, and I'm truly humbled. I'm excited to be a part of this year's GCAP 2020 Pathways to Connect virtual conference. So before we begin, let us get acquainted virtually. My name is kiN, and I'm originally from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I came to Australia about 16 years ago to do my bachelor's in media and communication, majoring in film, TV, and photography. And I have loved living here in Australia so much that I decided to stay on after my graduation and grow my career here. So by day, I am a marketing and communication specialist who has been working in the industry for over 15 years, where I've worked with various clients and companies across Australia, New Zealand, Asia Pacific, North America, Canada, and even Hong Kong. I've been lucky enough to be able to work with a diverse range of industries, such as the publishing sector, fashion and media, film, radio, TV, events, theater, software development companies, and of late, even the health industry here in Australia. In my role, I specialize in helping companies to plan, develop, and execute business strategies through integrating a mix of marketing and communication tools and frameworks to deliver the best possible outcomes. And then by night, or when I'm not working, I'm often found being Jabba the Butt on my couch, either binge watching movies or TV series or roaming the worlds of whatever game I'm playing on my PlayStation 4. I'm a big PlayStation fanboy who absolutely loves fantasy, action RPGs, also tower defense games, and anything within the horror genre. Through my years of experience, I've seen and worked with many people and businesses, including some of my game developer friends who have poured their heart and soul, money, blood, sweat, and tears into their games, only to not see it take off because they didn't know how to market their game, or they got stuck. It happens, and I know far too well how it feels, which is why I'm here today. I'm here today to tell you that you can do it. In fact, I'm quite sure most of you already are. Today, I'm going to show you that you don't need you don't need to be a marketing guru to successfully market your game. Of course, knowing one would definitely be great and be really helpful too. But some of you might already be actually good at it, and it's just that you haven't quite noticed it out yourself, or you just need a little bit more of insights onto a proper framework. In the first half of my presentation today, I am going to share with you a secret ingredient that you all most probably already have. And then in the second half, I will show you how you can apply that ingredient into your marketing framework through one single approach that will help you all through in getting your game marketed out there effectively. I promise you, this framework doesn't require any complex hacks or advanced marketing knowledge, and I will try my best to not even get too technical. Above all, this framework as well is repeatable and applicable to whether your game is launching or even if it's already out there and you've got patches coming up as well. As this is unfortunately a recorded session, I will be in the chat rooms while you are watching my presentation. And if any of you have any questions, please feel free to drop me a line or to chat me up in the window. Don't be shy. And if let's just say I couldn't get to you in your message quick enough, and you would like to connect with me after today's session, please feel free to connect via LinkedIn or write me at my email address on the screen. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Let's first address the elephant in the room. This was a quote by creative director Chris Zukowski at his presentation earlier this year at the GDC 2020 conference. He said, you really just want to make a game. You don't really like the marketing thing. but you do it because you know you have to. I'm not too sure if this is true of most developers anymore today, but allow me to share with you a personal story. When I was young, I hated washing the dishes. My mom would ask me to wash the dishes after dinner because that was my responsibility. So I would speed through washing them up. And when my mom reviewed the dishes, only to find grease, streaks, and grime and dirt that I overlooked because I was rushing through washing the dishes, she would make me wash them all over again. Whether they were clean or dirty, I had to wash all of them all over again from scratch. And I hated it. However, what I learned eventually was that if you have to do it properly. Not just because you have to do it, but because you want to get it right from the start. And by doing so, you will avoid the heartache, the unnecessary stress, and even more so if you have invested money into your project. With that said, let us quickly take a look at some of the common mistakes and setbacks that causes most indie game projects to get stuck at the marketing stage. When it comes to marketing, most people in the game development community find marketing to be a chore, like dishwashing. It doesn't have to be. Based on a lot of the conversations I've had with most of my game developer friends and colleagues and other market research and articles out there, there are really three common reasons at play here as to why game projects get stuck at the marketing phase. The first is really a mindset. I'm a game developer, not a marketer. This is true, but the fact of the matter is that today, a game developer is a game developer is a game developer. Like yourselves, there are millions of other game developers out there, but so few who truly branch out of their development bubble. In order to be successful, you really need to have some form of awareness and working knowledge of all the other steps and aspects of your industry so that you can make better decisions when you get to various stages of your game development process and also when it comes to marketing. Even more so when you are, a one-person band, for example, or if you have a team of 2 or 3 people working on your project, and each of you are required to wear multiple hats, not just as a developer. By showing an interest in all these other aspects, you will start approaching your game projects with new knowledge and insights so that you can be equipped for the road ahead as you progress through your development process. The second setback that most people face when it comes to marketing is that they have this notion thinking that they need buttloads of moolah to do one. This is a common misconception, but one that can be quite confounded. However, today there are myriads of cost-effective ways out there that you can explore when it comes to marketing your game. Depending on what your budget is, for example, you can look at social media advertising, where you can spend for as little as maybe say $35 to $50 a week, or even email marketing. I won't get into the list of cost-effective channels and strategies that you can deploy. However, I will make a point here. There is really no such thing as a $0 budget marketing. There will be some costs and you should consider them properly. For example, we will need a website or an email CRM. At the very least, there will be some costs like hosting, monthly fee, subscription, and I always tell any of my clients this: if you want to make money, you have got to spend some money as well. Don't do things half-baked. However, the framework that I'm about to share with you today is the closest thing that you will be able to invest on for close to a $0 budget marketing. And the biggest mistake that you need to break from, if you haven't already, is this. The game's finally ready. Time to market it out to the world. This is possibly the biggest setback that any game development project can suffer from, and it's time to stop falling into this trap. One of the biggest mistakes that you could ever make in successfully launching your game is making marketing an afterthought. Why? Because like game development, successful and effective marketing campaigns and strategies need to be planned carefully and requires time to be put together and executed. And so it really needs to be considered and thought about actively right from the start of your project, not the end. From a time efficiency perspective, if you think about it, you're technically delaying precious time when you could be actually putting your game out there in the hands of your excited gamers already. Instead, you now then have to go back and review your library and scavenge for screenshots and clips or sketches and start putting your website, your social media channels together and designing your ad, whatever it may be. All of this will require some time. And because you're naturally excited and eager to launch your game out there, what typically happens is that most teams then deploy what I call the push strategy, pushing ads out there, bombarding emails out. I describe this push strategy like throwing a grenade in the river. Where you throw a grenade into the river and say 5 fishes come out for today, and that's going to be dinner. And then tomorrow you're going to throw it again and maybe 2 fishes come up. And the day after you throw and no fish comes up to the surface. The problem with this strategy is exactly that. If you're relying on just pushing ads and emails out there, it is going to be rather unpredictable and inconsistent. As a result, because you don't see the results or conversions that you are wanting to get, you will naturally fall into a bubble of disappointment. So don't make marketing an afterthought. All right, but how can you market your game before you have anything to show for it? As I mentioned before, marketing should never be an afterthought. Instead, what you need to do is to be actively thinking about it right from the start. As soon as you have a product that is representative of the look and feel of your game, it's time to start marketing. It can be something as easy to produce as a screenshot. You can scale this up as your game develops further, and you can produce trailers and game demos along the way. But you do not have to wait for those to be ready in order to start marketing your game. By reaching out early, you will also be able to build up relationships and capture attention of other influencers, perhaps even, or even drive engagement with your community. Don't make marketing an afterthought. To put into perspective again, it's like washing dishes. The best thing you can do is to clean as you go. So you don't have a mountain of dishes to clean at the end of your meal. This way, it will become less and less more of a chore, but part of your process. So start making it an active, conscious part of your development framework today. So with that said, let's dive into what I mean. So when it comes to marketing today, as we know it, what are some of the prerequisites, the basics that we need? Take a moment to think about it. If you were to launch your game into the world tomorrow, what are some of the basic requirements? Everyone knows, at the very least, marketing your game today, or just about anything, requires a few basic essentials. You have a website, trailers, social media page, press kits, and possibly some email database if you already have been building it for yourself. However, think for a second. What do each of these channels require in order for them to be produced and deployed before you can even publish or share anything? At the heart of each channel, be it your website or your Kickstarter page or your Facebook page, or even when you need to produce a trailer, before you can construct it, you need materials and things to show for it. And that is called content. The one ring to rule each of these 5 prerequisites is content. So what exactly do I mean by content? Let's take a look at a definition of what content is in the context of marketing. Content is the presentation of information for a purpose to an audience through a channel in a form at a chosen time. All right, again, content is a presentation of information for a purpose to an audience through a channel in a form at a chosen time. Did you get that? Did that make sense? Let me break it down here for you. Simply put, we're talking about the what, why, who, where, how, and when. All right? What is the information? The information that you want your audience to know. Is it about your game or is it about your team, the characters, the concept? What is it that you want to showcase in your message to the world? The why is the purpose. Why should your audience take notice of your message? Why should your potential gamers care about your game? The why here is not because you want your gamers to buy your game. All right, that's moot. That's why you're doing marketing. That's why you're sharing this content. The why here should be aimed at wanting your audience to think, do, or feel something, ultimately triggering a call to action, whether it is to subscribe to your YouTube page or your website, to stay tuned to your development progress. Or if it's for a Kickstarter, you want your audience to invest and back your project up. Now, the who obviously is your audience. Who are you communicating out to? Now, it's very important to remember that gamers alone is not an audience, all right? You need to be a little bit more specific than that, all right? Who is this person that is most likely going to be responding or engaging with your content? Or ultimately, who is going to be the exact person who's going to buy your game? You need to be very clear on the type of person you're writing to, where they hang out, what are their interests, how old they are they predominantly male or female, are they serious gamers, casual gamers, what device do they even play on? Are they console or are they mobile? The more specific you get with your audience, the who, this will help dictate, the information you share, the tone and the style of your presentation, where to share it best even, so try and be as specific as you can when you think about who your audience is. The next thing you need to consider about your content is, of course, the form. How will you best get your message across to your audience? Are they more likely going to be watching a video or a dev blog, reading a dev blog, or are they going to prefer sharing a screenshot or your posters, for example? As a point of reference, think about how Blizzard communicated and teased the world about its Diablo 4 development to the community. From when it was just a mere tweet that there was a secret development team being put together, right up to the day that they dropped their kick-ass teaser trailer to the world. And last but not least, the one other component that you need to put into the equation of your content is the time. When is this message going out, right? Is it in time with your teaser, or is it about building up the hype, or is it about pre-launch, or is it post-launch? So the time needs to be considered with everything else: the information, the purpose, your audience, your channel, the form, and time. These are the 6 components that make up what your content should be about. So with that said, it is important to keep in mind what are the available forms of content that you can use in marketing your game out there. A lot of the times when I talk about content, many people straight away assume that I'm just talking about blogs. It's not just about writing blogs. As I shared with you, there are photos that you can use, screenshots, video recordings, audio recordings, trailers, demos. All these things are within your arsenal of content formats that you can use as you progress through your development in building up your marketing plan. So now that you know the 6 components that make up what content really should be about and how it governs the main channels of your marketing, let's revisit this question I posed earlier for another take. Here's a few important reasons as to why you need to think about your marketing plans from the start of your game development. First and foremost, it allows you to plan ahead, mapping out a timeline. By actively thinking about your marketing plans from the start, this will give you a clear roadmap as to when, even if it's just a rough estimate, when certain things need to be done. This will dictate things like when your website needs to be ready, when your social media channel needs to be up, when you should have a press kit ready, or if you're planning to deploy ads, when you should be deploying them, and of course, when to reveal your first trailer. So once you have it all mapped out, You can then put together a checklist of all the required content assets that you need to be consciously collating or producing as you go through your development so that you can use them when you reach your marketing phase. Some of which, as we covered earlier, will require a fair amount of time to prepare or produce, which is why you need to be thinking of doing this right from the start. For those of you, for example, who are choosing to do crowdfunding, what are the assets that you need to show to convince your potential investors to back your project up? Don't just say it in wordings or text, show them. Now, with a checklist of all the content assets that you may require, you can then move on to orchestrating an active production coordination for some of the more rather complex content assets. For example, videos. Videos are a no-brainer, must-have for just about anything in today's digital age. Whilst just about anyone can shoot and record a video, however, coming up with one that you can truly use to showcase to the world and convince and excite gamers about your game needs to be carefully planned and shot. It's like putting a video game together. Video requires production processes of its own. Here's a pro tip. Behind the scene clips and interviews make for great engaging content, but it needs to be carefully mapped out and coordinated. Most game studios and teams out there actively schedule their behind the scene recordings as they progress, such as interviews with their key creatives, process of design and animation, or even when they've organized a play testing group. Remember, behind the scene clips aren't shot after the production has finished. It's done during and in tandem. And once they have been edited, which will require a certain amount of time as well, you can share these clips with your viewers and your gamers at any point that you choose, whether it's pre-launch or leading up to a patch, for example, or after the game has even launched. The other benefit of thinking about your marketing as you progress through your development is that it will allow you to lock in some deadlines and milestones, even if they're estimates. This will help make sure that there are some importance and a level of accountability, and so that it doesn't get left behind. Especially if you're a one-person band, it helps you manage your workload. And if you're a small team, it allows you guys to divide and conquer and divvy up who needs to do what. And of course, last but not least, it allows you to be launch ready. Unleash the Kraken. Sit back and take a moment to congratulate yourself on your achievement rather than having to do the dishes and dig through your archives and start putting a marketing plan together. So why are we looking at content specifically when it comes to your marketing? Let's have a look at some stats. Matt Allison of Ubiquity Lab recently shared these stats on a webinar that discussed why content is key to effective marketing today. There are 3 statistics here that really summarizes why content is key. First, 70% of consumers prefer to learn about a company through content rather than an advert. If you remember earlier, I mentioned that ads alone don't work anymore with today's consumers. Instead, they want to be able to to engage or to be educated first before making any purchases or any decision. Next, content marketing costs 62% less than traditional marketing and generates 3 times as many leads. As I said at the start of my presentation today, there really is no such thing as a $0 budget marketing strategy. As evidently put here, content marketing is really one of the most cost-effective strategies that you can invest on. And last but not least, Google recently revealed that 56% of its own online ad impressions are never actually seen by users. Again, ads are unpredictable and immeasurable more so than ever. But above all, if anything else, content is absolutely king or queen, whichever term you prefer. But it is absolute for just about anything today. That is why we're looking at content. Everywhere you turn today, if you think about it, is content. Whether it's a photo, screenshot, a GIF, a meme, TikTok boomerang clips, news, interviews, whatever it is, Think about Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Netflix, Amazon Prime. Think about it. There are so many social media groups on Facebook, for example, where game projects are being showcased by thousands of indie game development teams from all around the world. Kickstarter pages, naturally, with over 14,000 video games being showcased, each flaunting their project's best content assets, from their trailers to story concepts to characters, game mechanics, and combat features. There are even shows on Netflix of late and other indie documentaries now that are about games or inspired by games, esports, and of late, the gaming community even. Content is what our society today are hungry for, especially even more so for those of us in lockdown at the moment. We are all looking for something to engage with. So that is why content is king and it's absolute. That is your secret ingredient, content. All right, now that you've got your secret ingredient, that is content, it's time to start cooking up your marketing plan. And the method we're going to be using and diving into is known as content marketing. Okay, so what is content marketing? Content marketing is a marketing technique of creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and acquire a clearly defined audience with the objective of driving profitable customer action. I know. I promised that I wouldn't get too technical, but hear me out, all right? Just give me a sec. Simply put, content marketing is a marketing technique that utilizes content as its main marketing ingredient to serve up dishes that will attract and influence your audience to make a decision. Like, for example, following your channel, investing in your Kickstarter project, or buying your game. So, why are we looking at content marketing? Let's look at a few reasons. First and foremost, gamers want to know about games, new and existing. It's part of our interest, so naturally, we want to know more. Secondly, most games are essentially stories, if not all, and stories are essentially content. And as I said earlier and covered in the stats, typical push marketing tactics alone, like ads, don't work as effectively anymore. And the best thing about content marketing is that it's really a self-reliant strategy that doesn't cost too much. Yeah. And this is backed up with the avenue and the age of social media and the communities available out there today. Think about it. There are so many social media groups out there and amount of users on Twitch, for example. If you have great content to share, think about the masses that you could reach without even spending a single dollar. And last but not least, it works. It is actually one of the most adopted business strategies in many companies out there today as well. So content marketing really does work when applied properly over time. And the best part about content marketing is that it can be applied to whatever stage your game development is in, whether it's just starting in development, alpha, beta, launched, or even if it's already ongoing. Okay, before we move on, let's process all of that for a second. You now know what content is, why content is important, and also why content marketing is our preferred method here. It's time to see how it all comes together. This is a game called Darkest Dungeon, which I'm sure most, if not all of you, may have either heard of or played it yourself. Produced by Red Hook Studios back in 2013 and launched in February 2015 by founders and creators Chris Barassa and Tyler Sigmund, it all started through a Kickstarter campaign. And they not only got their game successfully launched, but they also made it into getting the game ported across multiple platforms. As you can see here on the screen, with still 9 days to go on their campaign, they earned over $240,000 on an ask of $75,000. Over 7,300 backers supported and invested this project. And if you break it down, it makes an average of just about $32.50 per backer. With more than 1 week to go, you can imagine that this game had definitely achieved their goal. Question is, why was this Kickstarter campaign so successful? How did they go about it? I'm now going to play a video clip for you. And if you can, take some notes as you watch the video and see if you can capture some of the key pointers that attributed to the success of their campaign.
We wanted to bring something solid, something tangible, something that had demonstrated our own personal investment in it. And the only way to show that was to, let Tyler flesh out the game systems, describe the game in as much detail as we possibly could, and give me a bit of a stage to show, the tone, the mood, the content, so that people knew what they were getting and they knew that we were taking it extremely seriously.
It's been 8 or 9 months of diving into the product, and one thing about that was we had identified kickstarting from the beginning as something that we wanted to do. Just basically the crowdfunding, gives you the ability to have more control over your product, because you don't have to compromise your creative vision with, say, a publisher. But that took a lot of patience, because the urge, of course, is to maybe launch the campaign right away.
Mailing list updates, blog updates, regular trickling out of some art. We didn't want to be overly transparent. We sort of, we're deliberately controlling the message and only sort of tweeting and posting when we had something substantial that we thought, people might think is cool. So we weren't trying to spam everybody. We were just trying to put it on a slow burn and just kind of gently build momentum. We released the first trailer online. We ate the cost ourselves. We weren't getting paid or anything, but we felt it was important to sort of tell the world that the game was here and it was coming and it was a real thing. And then we sort of managed our mailing list and provided regular updates through our website as we sort of worked on the playable. And when we got to a point where we felt like we were within range of being able to provide enough content for an effective Kickstarter campaign, then we actually started talking seriously about what that timeline would look like and when would make sense.
So what did you think? What were some of the key components that you took away from that short video clip? Let's discuss them together. So first and foremost, they thought about their marketing approach from the start, identifying Kickstarter as their main platform. In fact, they also started a Facebook page to promote Darkest Dungeon in tandem, which helped to maximize their reach, not just on Kickstarter audiences, but also on social media on Facebook. They also identified using content as a main marketing ingredient over the course of 12 months of production, which they then produced content assets in tandem with their development progress. They also invested on producing their first trailer, making sure that it really showcased what the game was really about to their potential backers. And more importantly, they didn't rush to push everything out at once. It was all carefully planned out. So they didn't spam their email list and trickling out the content that they have, leaving their audiences wanting more. Did that make sense? I really hope that you're starting to see how this is all coming together through the content marketing approach that I'm sharing with you here today. Let's take a closer look. As I mentioned earlier, content marketing works when applied properly over time. So we've now come to the part where we will look at how we can apply this framework to your game development process. Let's get your ingredients into the pot and start cooking with this framework. As I'm sure you are all familiar with this framework, these are the stages of game development, from planning right up to post-production. Sidebar note, as we have uncovered earlier on today, marketing hype should not wait until pre-launch. Instead, it needs to be considered right from the start. So, like how your game development has a process, content marketing works in tandem with what we call the customer journey through a funnel. And that funnel is called the content marketing funnel. The reason why we call it a funnel is because realistically, as many people that we may try to reach out to, not all of them are going to end up being a customer. However, that's where we need to be strategic and carefully map out how we can nurture and convince these potential customers further down the funnel using content and filtering out the ones who are actually interested in buying your game. So let's have a look. This funnel is generally divided into 4 main stages or 3 main parts. At the top of the funnel, our content really should be focusing on capturing awareness or attention about your game project. And then in the middle of the funnel, the content that you utilize needs to focus on stimulating an interest and wanting your leads to find out more about your game. Now, the content at this stage of the funnel ideally focuses on educating and informing. Then when you come to the bottom of the funnel, your content needs to focus on turning that interest into desire and potentially warranting an action, which is buying your game. In a practical context, think of it this way. At the awareness stage, this is where you grab your prospect's attention by saying hello and making an introduction. And then in the interest stage, this is where you establish a reason to connect and flaunt your authenticity. And then in the desire stage, this is where you plant the seed and convince them that they want to invest in your project and ultimately making a transaction when the time is right. And of course, at the action stage, this is the actual conversion part where you want them to buy your game. With your content assets in mind, here's a sample of what types of content formats that you can use at each stage of the funnel, keeping in mind that the very elements you need to consider at the front of mind when producing and sharing your content still is the who, what, why, when, how, and where. Keep in mind, however, that the content pieces you use in addressing each stage of this funnel may vary depending on where your game is at. For example, if you are only at the start of your game development process, the awareness content pieces may simply be a screenshot, for example, or even just a mere tweet to your community of gamers. If you're well underway in your development and have things like a teaser trailer, that will be perfect to use as your primary awareness stage content. And of course, if your game is already out and existing and you want to further maximize your game's exposure, you can have a variety of content formats to play in addressing each stage of the funnel. Ultimately, this is the reason why you need to be actively coordinating the production of your content assets throughout your game development. Here's something that you need to keep front and center of mind. From start to finish, your entire game development journey is content. You are, in fact, sitting on a treasure trove of content. In fact, you even have a document that can serve as an outline for what types of content you can be producing for your game. And that document is called the game design document. So let's quickly take a look at some of those key elements from your game design document that you can make your content assets from. So if your game has a strong idea or concept, for example, use that to your advantage and showcase it to the world. Here's an example. This is a game called Chorus, an adventure musical by Summerfall Studios, currently in development, utilizing crowdfunding as their main campaign platform. This game incorporates elements of adventure RPG told through a musical format. There ain't many games out there that I know of, at least, that presents itself in such a style and manner. And as a fan of musicals, I'm definitely hooked in. Here's another example. Though technically a product and a game in one, this is Quell by Quell Tech, promising to deliver a fitness-related product that you would use to fight your way through an exciting fantasy world and get fit at the same time. On their Kickstarter page, they show us how the concept behind the product works and the people involved in ensuring the real fitness impact that it will deliver. Here's a look at some genre-related content pieces that these games have produced to share with their community of gamers. Remember, simple screenshots and posters that describe your game in a nutshell can capture awareness and interest rather quickly, triggering your prospect to engage and find out more about your game. And of course, if your game's story element is the strongest unique selling point, flaunt it. suck your potential gamers in through the narrative and produce feature trailers that teases and sets the premise of your game. And a good way to keep the conversation alive amongst your community, for example, is by using a Twitter handle. Game characters are also a powerful content element that you can use to reel and connect with your gamers. Here's a look at a personal favorite game of mine, Child of Light. It enraptured me with their amazing and unique artwork and characters. These character sketches provide a further look into the game. Whether it's still in development or even after it's been launched, it allows potential buyers to get a sense of your game's style. Here's an example of a game where its world design was definitely one of its strongest and most captivating element. And by the way, if you haven't played this game already, I highly recommend it. Now, this game called Other Side flaunted their game's dark and gothic artworks and sketches, and used it on their social media channels to create messages and hype towards its launch day. In short, flaunt your game's greatest and proudest assets to attract attention, spark interest, plant the seed of desire, and of course, have them eagerly await for your game's launch or rushing out to buy them. So, with all that said and shown, let's take a moment to recap your content marketing walkthrough. Here's a snapshot of the stages of your game development along with the content marketing funnel. Be sure to map your content marketing stages in accordance with your game development progress. Remember, as soon as you have something concrete or tangible that represents your game in the best possible way, you can start marketing your game and building up the hype and attention that it deserves. What you are seeing on the screen is just an example of how you can align your funnel with the stages of your game development. Depending on the size of your team and game project, the alignment and deployment of your content marketing strategy may vary slightly. To illustrate what I mean, here are a few noteworthy examples that you can take inspiration from, hopefully, in terms of how they successfully cultivated attention towards the game through effective use of content. The game called Black Myth Wukong by a Chinese indie developer team called Game Science simply dropped their kick-ass official trailer, nothing else, to create awareness amongst the gaming community. The trailer showed a sneak peek of the story premise, along with over 10 minutes of gameplay footage. And in just 2 weeks, over 5.6 million people have viewed the trailer. And it has also sparked a huge buzz amongst all gamers and game review editors alike. They didn't issue out any press kits, nor did they even build a website or social media page at all. Yet millions of gamers are eagerly waiting to see more of this game. A classic example of utilizing demos to spark awareness within the gaming community is, of course, the PT demo. Who could forget this infamous and controversial demo that was initially meant to serve as a concept teaser for the next would-be Silent Hill installment? When the demo was made available for downloads, it got over 1 million download hits that got the entire gaming community stirred up, even until today. And as I said earlier, behind the scene footage and features make great content to engage and spark interest. Leading up towards launch day, this game called Other Side strategically showcased its concept and production process across social media, garnering over 200,000 views, which naturally triggered a lot of conversations within the gaming community as well. Now, it would be remiss of me to not point out a word of caution. As I said, content marketing works when it is applied properly. However, no form of marketing can help you if your game fails to deliver. A classic case study of this scenario is No Man's Sky, where they had showcased and made promises about their game that they failed to deliver at launch. The same logic applies to any Kickstarter project as well, especially when you're asking the community to invest in your game project. Many Kickstarter games fail not because of their marketing, but because it failed to deliver. So, with all that said, It's now come to the point of my presentation where we recap a few final words. Like with anything marketing related, always know your audience first. Gamers alone isn't enough. Be as specific as you can in identifying who your potential buyers are. Your game development process is a kingdom of content assets. Utilize your game design document to help you identify what types of content assets you can produce. Gamers want to know about games, and they are always going to be hungry for information about games. Use that to your advantage. Content marketing works effectively the more you invest in it. Don't just stop at posting up a trailer. Keep feeding the hungry mob of gamers who are craving for more news. Stay the course. Content marketing requires careful planning and discipline. It is a self-paced and self-reliant framework. The results and hype don't just happen overnight. There is no such thing as a zero-budget marketing strategy. Content marketing is going to be the most cost-effective one to invest in. Remember, content marketing isn't the only marketing strategy, but all other marketing strategies require content nevertheless. And of course, invest in producing good quality videos and get them reviewed before publishing. Make sure whatever video you are putting out makes sense and it addresses any stage of the funnel that you are wanting to target. Behind the scenes videos and interviews make for great content, so make sure you actively coordinate recordings as you progress through your development. And above all, start your marketing process from the very beginning. Press start now. Remember, don't let the dishes pile up. The best thing you can do is to clean as you go. And with that said, that's all, folks. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and I hope you found my presentation helpful, insightful, and useful. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to all of your questions in the chat room on time, but please feel free to connect with me via LinkedIn or write to me on at my email address. I'd love to connect with any one of you if you have any questions about content marketing for your game. Thank you very much to all the sponsors and the organizers of GCAP 2020 for making this virtual conference still possible despite the challenging situation and times we are faced with here. Thank you and have a good rest of the conference here at GCAP. Thank you.